and welcome to Ikike Digest, your learning space on Home FTV. I am Kome Odomo. On Ikike Digest, we aim to continuously bring to light environmental issues as it affects communities and our food system. We also highlight policies that do not meet the needs of people and provides our listeners with adequate environmental issues. In today's edition, we will be examining grassroots mobilization in Africa. Grassroots mobilization in Africa, and we want to see the need why Africans should mobilize. And we have in the studio Boaventura Monjane, who would explain better how grassroots can mobilize to make African voices heard. Boaventura Monjane holds a PhD in sociology from Faculty of Economics in University of Coimbra in Portugal. He is a research fellow at the Institute for Poverty, Land, Agrarian Studies at the University in South Africa. You're welcome, Boa.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so just to be very sure, please pronounce you're a member of the international study at there. I want to be sure that I got that very correctly.
La Via Campesina.
And that is in?
It's a global movement of peasants.
Okay.
This is small-scale farmers, fisher folks, pastoralists, indigenous people across the world. So I served as a member of the International Secretariat.
That's very good to know that people are actually trying to protect their land. So in line with that, how do communities mobilize and organize for land protection rights?
They use different kinds of strategies and tactics, depending on the context in which they are. We need to begin by remembering ourselves that the African continent comes from a history of invasion and colonization that still remains, that still has strong legacies. And part of that strong legacy has to do with the fact that we still have rural communities, peasants communities that are still landless or that have precarious land tenure. So their struggle for land access and control is actually a continuation of the long-term struggle for liberation. So mobilization around land access today in the continent should be seen as a continuous struggle that initiated from the first day that this continent was invaded by colonial Europe. So I do my research in Southern Africa. I look at Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and South Africa in particular, but I've traveled across the continent. I've worked and researched and learned from movements, land-based, agrarian-based movements in Tanzania, in Uganda, in the DRC, in Kenya, in Madagascar, in Mali, in Senegal. And I can tell you that the history, although has different dynamics, has strong commonalities. In Mozambique, the peasantry gained a strong source of gain when Mozambique won its independence in 1975, when the land was nationalized and, of course, redistributed among the peasants that were denied fertile lands by the Portuguese colonial regime. But even though they got access to land through a radical land reform, in which land belongs to the state and can't be privatized, they are still confronted with threats to lose that land, through mega projects of industrial, capitalist agriculture, mining, and so on and so forth. So it's a continuous struggle as well. In Zimbabwe, the the Zimbabwean people got their land back in the early 2000s when they when the government implemented the fast-track land reform program to correct a historical injustice that was being perpetual in Zimbabwe, where few white commercial farmers of British origin were controlling, most of the productive agricultural lands. They've corrected that history, despite the fact that there are some threats of reversals. In South Africa, which is where I live and I'm based, that land inequality hasn't been resolved. The promise of apartheid did not did not correct the land inequality to the point that between 60 to 70% of all productive agricultural lands in South Africa belong to a few white commercial capitalist farmers. So it's a region with different dynamics, but with vibrant struggles to either protect the gains of independence and land reform, such as in the case in Mozambique and now in Zimbabwe, or to force the state and to force the capitalist, the agrarian capitalist class to implement land reform.
So how does this struggle in this mobilizing promote sustainable farming practices and food security in terms of agroecology?
Well, in cases where there is more secure, sustainable land access and tenure, we see incredible things happening. I'll give you an example of a community in Zimbabwe, in Masvingo province, in Shashe, where I visited many times, I've learned from, and I did part of my PhD research about, where for many years that community was a cattle range, was owned by, and we're talking here about hundreds of thousands of hectares, where was, that piece of land was owned by one commercial white farmer that was producing, was raising cattle, and of course a few crops for, to serve as feed for the cattle. After the land reform program, that area was democratized. The land was democratized, and we see hundreds of families transforming Shashe into a vibrant agroecological village, where it moved from having a monocrop or a mono kind of farming, which was cattle, to introduce many other kinds of livestock. Between small, medium, and big animals, but also a variety of food crops, from grains, cereals, vegetables, fish, you name it. So if I look at the numbers and the demography and the biodiversity of Shashe, just 20 years after land reform was implemented, you can see what having secure access to land can do for people, for small-scale farmers, and also for the country. I consider Shashe to be a village that has food sovereignty, not complete. There are many things that still have to happen. State support, a number of, support with, policies, but also resources. To make that village even more vibrant. But for me, it has been one of the most impressive agroecological villages that I have seen in Southern Africa. So if you give land to people, and if you assure them that they have secure tenure over that land, it's amazing what people can do.
Okay, still on conserving, still on sustaining land, using sustainable land. Still on that question, how do grassroots mobilizers tend, what are some of the challenges? How do they tend to overcome these challenges when it comes to conserving the forests?
Well, the forest dimension of land struggles is one of a particular characteristics, right? Because normally, you know, we don't have forests everywhere in Africa. In Shashi, for instance, there is no forest. But in areas where we have forests, the agrarian structure also of that particular area tend to be different from the one that is basically based on like farms and so on and so forth. Forest people, if we can call them, they tend to combine their livelihood strategies between farming and also acquiring resources from the forest, you know. That can include hunting of, you know, animals, harvesting of medicinal, you know, plants and roots, but also foods and fruits and so on and so forth. But like land, like agricultural land, forests have also been targeted for capitalist accumulation through various mechanisms, including, for instance, projects for carbon sequestration, for carbon markets, Red Plus project, and so on and so forth. I did some research in central Mozambique and Gorongosa and in Zambezia, this is central Mozambique, where these carbon credit projects were implemented, and of course they did not help much in terms of sustainability of you know, forest people who are small scale farmers, are peasants, because like as I said, like land, forests also are being targeted for capital accumulation. But there is a particular case in Mozambique, in a region called Mabu. It's close to a mountain. It's called Mount Mabu, where there's also a vibrant forest that is being protected by the community, and it's not integrated into market relations in terms that, you know, there are no red projects and so on and so forth. So that forest is very sustainable. The community has been able to keep it, conserve it, and implement a number of strategies to reduce their dependency on the forest. So both land and forest, for it to be sustainable and contribute to food sovereignty and also forest sovereignty, they need to be out of any market relations, any capitalist market relations, because that will allow, you know, people who live there, work there, to protect them more and make them work for the communities, in fact.
So you talked about RED. Before we go on a break, I wanted to talk about the No RED project.
Yeah.
So how does this work?
RED, REDD, stands for reducing emissions from forest degradation, from deforestation and forest degradation. I'm going to repeat for the sake of the listeners. RED stands for reducing emission from degradation and forest degradation. No.
Deforestation and
deforestation and forest degradation.
Yes.
The idea, you know, to explain it in simple terms, is that through the process of photosynthesis, forests, like any other vegetation, has the capacity to sort of sequestrate carbon that is emitted through, you know, industrial activity, emission of, you know, green pollution emissions, right? Green gas emission and so on and so forth. So some people came with this idea that if we can measure how much a forest can sequester, how much carbon a forest can sequestrate, and if we reduce deforestation, this means if we don't cut down trees and we keep or maintain the trees that are there, then we can measure how much carbon was sequestrated, and therefore we can sell carbon credits. So that somewhere else, someone somewhere can continue emitting,
and then
as long as there is a forest that is sequestrating carbon somewhere else. So it's a perverse, it's a stupid, crazy idea that we as NORAD in Africa Network has been fighting for many years to reject that mechanism and reject that false solution to climate change. And that has been, in fact, also mobilizing agenda for especially forest communities, but also small-scale farmers across the continent.
Yeah. So it's no red in Africa. We are saying that we do not want red in Africa. So we're going to take a short break, and when we return, we will see how all of us can mobilize together to make Africa habitable again. Stay tuned. We share some of the success story as a way to encourage other women to speak up and fight for their rights.
Government ideally is set up to care for the most vulnerable in the society. But the Lagos state government consistently over the years appears to be at war with the urban poor. And then equally triggering, equally alarming is the impact on young people. Government agencies can just wake up overnight and go to a community and burn it down. And we say, okay, this community has been demolished. And people just move on to the next story.
Like nothing happened.
What about the families? What about the children? So what happens to them?
Yes.
They're not rich. They don't have social media presence. They cannot speak good English. They may not even smell fine. Mostly fishing communities and what we call slums. Struggling people. So what happens to them? Do they have any right to housing? Do they have any right to informed consent? Do they have any right to adequate notice for those houses to be removed? Silence is extremely dangerous. When something is going on, you ask questions and you speak about it. And in most of the cases, I can tell you that majority of the forced eviction exercises in Lagos are illegal.
Welcome back. You've been listening to Boaventura Monjane, who has been enlightening us on how communities can mobilize. Let's talk about how women and marginalized communities can influence grassroots mobilizing, especially in Africa, which is our focus.
I think women, marginalized groups can be, can be people across the board. But I think women not only can influence, but they are leading struggles for land access, land to protect territory, because the concept of territory includes not only land, but water, seeds, forests. It's a more comprehensive term. Women have led movements to protect land, to struggle for land, and I think their presence in numbers and in leadership has been shaping grassroots mobilization, at least in Southern Africa. I know, the three movements that I follow in Southern Africa, the Mozambican National Union of Peasants, the Zimbabwe Smallholder Farmers Forum, and also the Food Sovereignty Campaign in South Africa, they've been led by women leaders. And these are powerful, strong movements in the continent. So the leadership of women who are not necessarily always marginalized is very key. And of course, I mean, among the marginalized people, what we can call marginalized people are the landless, people who have no land and therefore have nothing to lose. Their presence in the struggle is also, and I'm thinking of South Africa here. Their presence in the struggle not only is important to impact the mobilization that they do, but is essential for the success of the mobilization itself.
So looking at local communities, how has grassroots mobilization impacted them when it comes to the environment, their social life, and the economic, and all of that?
Yeah. I think that for, the fact that they've been building criminal justice through their activities. You can talk about agroecological projects. You can talk about water seeds projects. You can talk about that. In my view, contributes strongly to to better, the environment in which they live, even though they are in constant threat of losing their resources and also of losing their environment by transnational corporations, mining companies, you name it, both from their countries and from abroad. Even though there is that constant permanent threat, even though, the case of Southern Africa, even though that region has been hit by climate hazards, these, cyclones and hurricanes and so on and so forth, flooding and drought and so on and so forth. I think the actions of these people, of these movements, their mobilization is actually helping to shape the ways in which at least climate politics are, unfold and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so a very last question from me, but I don't know if you do have other things, but how can this mobilization be strengthened amongst the grassroots people?
I think one thing that is important is unity among these groups. There are attempts to unify through various platforms. One of them is La Via Campesina that you mentioned. Another one is the Rural Women Assembly. Those are networks, are regional networks that they have a Pan-Africanist vision to unite the whole continent in order to unite struggles that are sort of scattered. Because I used to say that capital is articulated, although there is what they call competition within open markets, but capital is articulated, and the struggles against it are often disunited. And I think strategies to unite struggles and build stronger voice and build new imaginaries for the continent, for agrarian justice, social justice, climate justice, and so on and so forth, could be one. The other strategy could be to engage those holding power, be it local governments, national governments, regional bodies, to remind them that they're there because of the people. They're not there. They're not there because they were put by transnational corporations, by capital. They were there because they represent the people. So we need to engage them, not in a manner of not begging them. We don't need to beg state officials and government. We need to force them to represent us and sort of take our demands, take the people's demand into consideration. And finally, the strategy to build a counterpower. A counterpower to capital, a counterpower to transnational corporation, a counterpower to corporate power. So that, because we need to understand that any process of mobilization, any process of unionization, any process of putting people together is a process of building counterpower to whatever power that is oppressing or exploiting the people. So strengthening this counterpower and exercising active agency of those who are mobilizing is very important in order to birth a different future, a brighter future for the masses of our people across the continent.
Thank you very much for that. Leaving it on that very note is very interesting. It's time to strengthen counterpower to take over Africa, because Africa is not underdeveloped as we usually hear. Africa must be protected, and we say no to Red Plus in Africa. Thank you very much, Boaventura, for giving us the opportunity, and we hope that you found it very interesting, and we know that our audience has found it very engaging also. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for me.
And we've come to the end of today's episode. We do hope that you found it very interesting. Please remember to visit our website, www.homef.org, and follow us on all our social media platforms on Echo Homef. I remain your host, Kome Odomo.